Grace Miller had worked brunch shifts at the Royal Meridian long enough to memorize every perfume note and every polite smile the wealthy guests wore like masks. But this morning, the air in the marble lobby felt different, too bright, too exposed, as though the chandeliers were watching her instead of illuminating the room. She balanced 3 plates of avocado toast in one hand and a tray of champagne in the other, reminding herself to breathe through the rush, because brunch crowds in downtown Seattle never waited and tips never came easy. She turned toward the service corridor just as a voice behind her froze her entire body in place. "Gracie girl." Grace nearly dropped the plates. No, not here, not him. She kept walking, hoping the universe would grant her invisibility for just 60 seconds, but the familiar voice sharpened, cutting through conversations around her. "Grace Miller, I know you hear me." Several guests turned their heads. A ripple of curiosity moved through the lobby. Grace felt heat crawl up her neck as she forced her legs forward. She had run from Portland. She had run from Tacoma. She had chosen Seattle as the place to rebuild her life, but Evan Brooks had found her again. She set the plates down on a room service cart, her hands trembling so hard she could barely place them flat. She needed to get to the service elevator. That was her only safe exit. She spun toward the hallway, but the sound of fast approaching footsteps struck her spine like ice water. Evan's voice rose, sharper, louder, echoing through the space. "You ran from Portland. You ran from Tacoma. You think Seattle can hide you." Grace burst into motion, pushing past a group of tourists, nearly colliding with a bellhop. Her breath caught in her throat as she sprinted toward the staff-only corridor. She heard Evan behind her, their shoes slapping the marble floor in uneven rhythm, predator and prey. A server rolled a room service cart into her path, and she swerved, catching the edge, sending silverware clattering across the floor. Someone gasped, but she did not stop. She reached the service elevator and slammed her palm against the call button again and again, praying for the doors to part. They slid open, and she stumbled inside, pressing herself against the wall. She did not notice the man already standing there, until she collided with something solid, unmoving, a presence that radiated calm in stark contrast to her panic. She looked up and saw a tall, dark-haired man dressed in a tailored navy suit, the kind worn by someone who did not wait in hotel lines, someone whose confidence was not learned but inherited or built on quiet power. His eyes flicked to the doorway just as Evan lunged toward the elevator. Grace gasped when Evan shoved his hand forward, trying to stop the doors from closing. The stranger moved with controlled precision, stepping between Grace and the open doors, lifting his hand to the close button, pressing it faster than she had thought humanly possible. For a split second, his profile sharpened in the fluorescent light, and a chill ran through her. She knew that face. Seattle knew that face. Cole Harrington, reclusive billionaire, founder of Harrington Technologies, the man journalists called dangerously private. Evan's fingers scraped the narrowing gap, but the moment his gaze met Cole's, something in Evan faltered. The chill in Cole's eyes was not anger. It was warning. The doors snapped shut with a metallic thud, sealing Grace inside the elevator, with the one man in Seattle she had least expected to ever stand near, let alone be rescued by. Her chest tightened as the elevator jolted upward, then stopped abruptly with a mechanical groan. The lights flickered, plunging them into dim emergency glow. Grace's breathing quickened, the panic rising again in her throat. Not this. Not being trapped. Not now. Cole's voice broke through the fear, low, steady, certain, in a way that soothed without softening. "You are safe in here. Take a slow breath." Grace could barely form words. "He found me. He always finds me." Cole studied her carefully, the emergency light carving his features into something both sharp and unexpectedly gentle. His voice held none of the impatience she expected from a man of his status, only calm calculation. His tone was not anger, he said quietly. It was obsession. That means escalation. Grace swallowed hard, gripping the handrail as the elevator creaked. "Why are you helping me?" Cole did not look away from her. "Because no one should be hunted. Not in this country." The elevator hummed as though preparing to move, but remained suspended between floors. Grace pressed her hand to her chest, trying to breathe through the rising haze of fear. Cole stepped slightly closer, not touching but near enough that she could feel the intention behind his stillness. "You are safe in here," he repeated, his voice lower now, carrying a weight she did not understand yet. "But when those doors open, we need to talk." The elevator hung between floors with a faint metallic groan, like the entire shaft was holding its breath. The dim emergency lighting painted everything with a soft amber glow that should have felt safe but instead made the space feel smaller, tighter, as if the walls were inching inward each second. Grace pressed her palms against the cool metal railing behind her, trying to steady herself, but her heartbeat thundered so loudly, she wondered if the stranger in front of her could hear it. Cole Harrington stood a few feet away, one hand braced near the control panel, studying her with an intensity that was not invasive but purposeful, like he was assembling a clear picture of the danger she was in with quiet efficiency. "You need to sit," he said gently, not commanding but firm enough to cut through her panic. Grace slid down until she was sitting on the floor, drawing her knees to her chest. "I am sorry," she whispered, her voice thin, shaky. "I did not mean to drag you into this." Cole lowered himself to a crouch, not touching her but positioning himself at her level so she would not feel cornered. "You did not drag me into anything, Grace. You ran for safety. I happened to be standing in the only box in this hotel that closes fast enough to give you a chance." "How do you know my name?" The question tumbled out before she could stop it. She instantly felt foolish. Everyone knew his name. Not many people knew hers. "Grace, you work here. It is embroidered on your apron." She blinked down at the uniform she had forgotten she was even wearing. "Right." She felt stupid for asking, but Cole did not react with amusement or dismissal. Instead, he leaned back slightly, giving her space. "Let us start with the important part. He found you again." Grace closed her eyes, shame and dread washing over her. "I have moved 3 times in a year. Seattle was supposed to be big enough for me to blend in." Cole considered this information quietly, his mind clearly sorting details like pieces of a dangerous puzzle. His tone when he finally spoke was clinical, analytical, but not unkind. His tone in the lobby was not anger. It was fixation. "I have heard that tone before." Grace shook her head, the memory burning behind her eyelids. Evan was not always like this. He used to be charming, smart, a little intense, but not dangerous. "People like him rarely start dangerous," Cole said softly. "But obsession is escalation over time." "Did you two live together?" "Not officially," Grace murmured, "but he kept a key to my place even after I moved out. He said it made him feel connected. That was the first time I should have known something was wrong." Cole's expression did not change, but his eyes sharpened in a way she could not interpret. "You ended things 6 months ago." Grace rubbed her palms across her knees, feeling exhausted just recalling it. "He said if I left him I would regret it forever. I thought he was just heartbroken. Now I think he meant something else." "Did you file for a restraining order?" Cole asked in that same careful tone, like he already knew the answer but needed to hear it aloud. "I tried." The officer said unless he physically threatened me or hurt me or showed up with a weapon, they could not issue one. Stalking laws in Washington need proof. She swallowed hard. "He is too smart to leave proof." Cole exhaled slowly, running his thumb across his lower lip in thought. His movements were precise, deliberate, like he was restraining himself from reacting too strongly. A faint tremor ran through the elevator, causing the light above them to flicker. Grace jerked forward, her breath catching. Cole steadied her with a hand hovering near her shoulder, not touching but close enough that she could feel the intent. "It is only a shift in the counterweights," he said calmly. "Elevators bounce slightly while emergency brakes calibrate. You are not falling." The air grew warmer, or maybe that was just Grace's panic tightening around her ribs. "I am sorry," she whispered again. "I should not be taking up your time." Cole stared at her slowly as though she had just spoken in another language. "Safety is not an inconvenience," he said quietly. "Not for me. Not ever." She broke eye contact, unable to hold the intensity of his gaze. "You do not even know me. I know what fear looks like." His answer came instantly without hesitation, and Grace felt it down to her bones. Something passed over his features, then something almost like memory but gone too quickly for her to decipher. The elevator jerked again, harder this time, sending Grace forward. Cole moved faster than reflex, his hand catching her elbow, steadying her without pulling her closer. "Easy," he murmured. "You are all right." She breathed through clenched teeth. "I hate being trapped." The lights blinked again, leaving only the faint red emergency strip along the edge of the walls. Her vision wavered, heat rising in her chest like her lungs were shrinking. "This is a panic response," Cole said quietly, "not a personality flaw. I need you to do something with me. Look at me." She did slowly, her breaths ragged. "In for 3, out for 4, he coached. She followed the rhythm, and the crushing pressure around her lungs eased enough that shapes stopped blurring around her. "Better?" he asked. Grace nodded, trembling. "Thank you. You are not the first person I have helped through one of these." His voice softened. "You will not be the last." Grace had no idea why that sentence made something ache in her chest. maybe because he said it without judgment, only understanding. The elevator hummed faintly, as if attempting to restart, then fell silent again. "How long will we be here?" she whispered. "Minutes, maybe longer. But we are fine." Someone must have already reported the malfunction. Hotels track elevator movement constantly. Grace looked up at him for the first time, really studying him. He was handsome, yes, but not in a polished, shallow way. His features looked carved, not styled. A jawline shaped by stress, not vanity. Dark eyes that hid far more history than she had any right to learn. "Why were you even in the service elevator?" she asked quietly. "I thought billionaires glide between floors in private penthouses." A faint amusement touched his mouth. "I was meeting with the hotel's culinary director in the staff kitchen. They want Harrington-branded automation in their new dining system, and despite appearances, I do occasionally navigate the mortal world like everyone else." He paused, then added, "I prefer the staff elevator. It is quieter." She blinked. "You prefer quiet. The world is loud. Privacy is rare. I protect what is mine." Something in the way he said mine thrummed through her chest. Before she could unpack the feeling, he continued, "Grace, tell me how he found you in Seattle." Her throat tightened. "He tracked my debit card transactions and my social media check-ins. And he found a mutual friend who told him I was here." Cole's eyes darkened into something colder, more frightening than Evan's rage in the lobby. "That is calculated surveillance, not heartbreak." He tilted his head. "Has he ever physically harmed you?" Grace hesitated. "Not exactly. He would grab my wrists sometimes too tight, but he always let go before bruises. He likes control without consequences." Cole nodded, his jaw tight. "That is common among obsessive personalities." His tone remained steady, but an undercurrent of something vibrated beneath it. Something like anger, but not uncontrolled, more like sharpened purpose. Grace pressed her hands to her eyes, exhausted. "I just wanted a normal life. A job, an apartment, quiet mornings. But he shows up everywhere." Cole studied her with an unreadable expression, then spoke in a tone that sent a shiver down her spine. "Grace, no one should have to survive like that. Not here, not anywhere." The emergency light flickered back to full illumination, startling both of them. The elevator shuddered, then began rising slowly toward the nearest landing. Grace exhaled in relief, her shoulders sagging. Cole straightened as if preparing himself for what waited beyond the doors. "When they open," he said evenly, "do not step out first." Grace blinked. "Why not?" "Because he was waiting for you. He will be waiting again. But he will not come near you while I am standing there." His certainty was not bravado. It was simply truth spoken aloud. Grace swallowed her fear, meeting his eyes. "Why are you helping me?" Cole held her gaze steady, unwavering. "Because no one should be hunted, and because I have seen what happens when obsession is ignored." She felt something inside her shift, like a lock, quietly clicking open, not trust, not yet, but recognition. The elevator slowed, nearing the floor, and Cole added softly, "When those doors open, stay behind me, and then we are going to talk about what comes next." The elevator doors slid open with a muted chime, the sound far too gentle for the storm waiting outside. The hallway leading to the service lobby was empty at first glance, but Cole did not move. His eyes swept the space with the precision of someone who had spent years assessing risk long before stepping into a room. Grace stood behind him as instructed, her breath caught somewhere between her ribs and her throat. She expected Evan to be right there, breathing fury into the air, but the corridor remained still. Cole stepped forward, one measured pace, then another, his posture relaxed yet alert. Only when he reached the threshold did Grace see the shadow near the corner of the lobby. Evan stood half hidden behind a pillar, his eyes fixed not on her but on Cole. The anger from earlier had changed into something tighter, something calculating. Cole's voice dropped, quiet as snowfall but sharp enough to cut steel. "Do not move toward her." Evan stiffened, his jaw twitching, but he did not take a step. He looked at Grace with a twisted smile. "So that is your plan? You think hiding behind some rich guy makes you untouchable?" Cole did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "She is not hiding behind anyone. I am standing between you because you crossed a line." Evan barked, a laugh too loud for the quiet hallway. "You do not even know her, man. Stay out of it." Cole held his gaze so steadily it seemed to drain sound from the room. "I know enough." Evan's expression flickered, irritation, fear, then something like panic before he masked it with bravado. "This is not over, Grace. You cannot run forever." Grace's nails dug into her palms, but Cole lifted one hand slightly, signaling her to stay silent. Then security rounded the corner, hotel staff alert after the elevator malfunction radioed through their system. Cole stepped back, creating a barrier that shielded Grace from their view. Evan retreated quickly, slipping into the lobby crowd before anyone could stop him, his eyes never leaving Grace until he vanished. The moment he was gone, the breath in Grace's lungs released like a punctured balloon. Cole turned just enough to see her face. "You are shaking. Come with me." He did not touch her, he simply guided her with his presence out of the service hallway toward a private access door staff used for VIP exits. Grace followed because her legs refused to function without something steady in front of her, something unbreakable. Outside, in the hotel's private driveway, a sleek black sedan waited as if summoned by silent command. Cole opened the back door but did not force her inside. "You are not safe walking home or taking a bus, or standing anywhere he can approach without witnesses. Let my driver take you." Grace's throat tightened. "I do not want to drag you into my mess." Cole leaned slightly so his eyes were level with hers. His voice lost its edge, replaced by something quieter and unexpectedly human. "Safety is not a burden, Grace. Not yours, not anyone's." The sincerity in his tone loosened something in her chest, a knot she had been carrying from city to city, pretending she was fine. She stepped into the car. Cole closed the door gently and spoke to the driver in a low tone. "Take her wherever she needs to go. Do not let her walk alone." The driver nodded and Cole looked back at Grace. "I will check in later. Be somewhere with people until then." But Grace caught something else in his gaze as the door clicked shut, a thought he almost voiced but withheld. The sedan pulled away, leaving Cole standing in the driveway watching until the car turned out of sight. Grace sat back against the cool leather seat, her mind spinning. She could not understand him. Why would a billionaire with an empire to run care about a waitress who could barely afford rent? Why would he stand between her and danger with no hesitation at all? She did not have an answer. She only had the memory of his voice saying no one should be hunted. The car dropped her at the back entrance of the Royal Meridian where employees exited. She changed out of her uniform, hands trembling as she locked her belongings in her locker. Instead of going home, she walked to a nearby coffee shop, open late with warm lighting spilling onto the sidewalk. It felt safer than solitude. She sat near the window, watching the street, scanning every passerby for sandy hair and familiar blue eyes. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, but instinct told her exactly who it was. "Grace, this is Cole. Just checking if you reached somewhere safe." She stared at the message, stunned that someone like him would even think to ask. She typed back, "I am in a coffee shop for now. Thank you again." "You do not need to thank me. What happened is unacceptable." In that sterile font on her phone screen, the words hit her harder than they should have. No one had ever declared anything unacceptable on her behalf. Before she could respond, another message appeared. "I need you to check something for me." "Does your phone battery drain unusually fast?" Grace blinked. "Yes, actually. I thought the phone was dying." Another message came immediately. "Does your screen light up sometimes, even when you are not touching it?" "Yes." "Why, Grace?" His next words made her blood run cold. "It is possible he installed a tracking or monitoring app on your device." Her pulse roared in her ears. "But how? You said he kept a key to your old apartment. If he ever accessed your phone even briefly, he could have installed something." Grace's chest tightened. "I need to throw it away," she typed. "No, do not." A rapid response. "If he tracks that phone and you destroy it, he will escalate. I will have an expert look at it. For now, turn it off and remove the battery if possible. If not, wrap it in aluminum foil or place it in a metal tin so it cannot send signals." She stared at her phone in horror. Evan had been inside her life even when she thought she had outrun him. She turned it off immediately, hands shaking too violently to hold the device steady. She slipped it into a metal tip jar on the table, hoping it would be enough. Another message lit up the screen before it fully powered down. "This is serious, Grace. I am not trying to frighten you, but he is not acting impulsively. He is planning." She whispered to herself, "I know." After the coffee shop closed, she walked home, hyper-aware of every sound, every shadow. When she reached her tiny apartment, the silence wrapped around her too tightly, too empty. And then she saw it. A single lily on her doorstep. Not a bouquet, not a note, just a single white lily. Grace stumbled back, her hand clapping over her mouth. He had been here. He knew where she lived. Her knees shook so violently, she sank onto the top step, unable to breathe. Before panic fully swallowed her, the building door opened behind her and her neighbor stepped out. "You okay, Grace?" She forced herself to nod, but she could not make her voice work. She picked up the flower only long enough to drop it directly into the dumpster behind the building. She went inside, locked every lock, shoved a chair under the doorknob, and slid to the floor, trying not to cry too loudly. Evan was escalating. She knew it. Cole knew it. Even the police would know it if only obsession left bruises. But instead she had a nightmare woven through cities following her, no matter how far she ran. That night, she slept with the lights on. Morning arrived heavy and dull, as though her body had not truly rested. She went to her shift, bleary eyes scanning the lobby constantly. Cole had said he would check in. She expected nothing more, but when her break arrived, a quiet, alert tone buzzed her phone screen. A message from a different, unknown number. "Grace, this is Harrington Security. Mr. Harrington requested an immediate technical scan of your phone. Can you bring it to Harrington Tower today?" Her breath caught. Cole Harrington had not just texted her from a coffee shop. He had mobilized professionals. For her, a waitress he had known for less than an hour. Fear warred with relief until she could hardly stand. She typed back, "Yes, I can be there in 30 minutes. Good." Another message came. "Mr. Harrington will meet you personally." She felt the ground shift beneath her, a pivot, a turning point she had not expected. The billionaire was stepping in, not by accident, not out of pity, but with purpose. And for the first time, Grace realized something painful and profound. She was no longer running alone. Grace arrived at Harrington Tower with her phone wrapped inside the metal tin she had borrowed from the coffee shop, the tin pressed tightly against her chest like a shield. The building rose above Seattle like a glass blade slicing through the sky, elegant and intimidating, in a way that made her painfully aware of the world she did not belong to. Yet the moment she stepped inside, the lobby staff greeted her by name as if she were expected. "Ms. Miller, welcome. Mr. Harrington is waiting for you on level 37. Grace blinked. "He is waiting for me." The receptionist smiled politely. Yes, he cleared his schedule. The elevator ride felt surreal, her reflection trembling in the mirrored walls, as if her fear were vibrating through the entire car. When the doors opened, Cole stood there, not in a tailored suit, but in a dark gray sweater, sleeves pushed up, revealing forearms lightly marked with stress. His expression softened the instant he saw her. "Grace, come in." He guided her into a private office, not the public executive suite, but a quieter, warmer space with soft lighting and thick curtains, as if designed for refuge, not meetings. On the table rested a laptop, a secure USB drive, and 2 cups of coffee still steaming. "Sit, please." She sat clutching the metal tin. "I turned it off like you said. I did not let it leave my sight." "Good." His tone shifted into something sharp and focused, the same version of him she had seen in the elevator when Evan tried to force his hand through the doors. "I had my tech team waiting on standby." He nodded toward the hallway. A woman with cropped black hair entered, crisp and professional. "This is Lydia, our cybersecurity specialist." Grace offered a weak smile. "Hi." Lydia accepted the tin and phone with gloves already on. "I will run a scan. If he installed spyware, I will find it." Then she disappeared with quiet efficiency. As soon as the door closed, Cole turned back to Grace. "Tell me everything that happened after you left the hotel." Grace hesitated, but there was something in Cole's posture that made honesty feel safe. She told him about the coffee shop, the messages, the instructions, and finally the lily left on her doorstep. His jaw tightened, that slight but unmistakable signal she was beginning to recognize as anger, directed not at her, but at the situation itself. "A lily," he repeated slowly. "Yes, 1 white flower. He used to give them to me when we were together. He said they meant purity or forgiveness." Cole exhaled a controlled breath, like he was trying to keep his voice from dropping into something much darker. Stalkers often use symbolic objects. It creates psychological pressure. He wants you to remember him whenever you open your door. Grace bit her lip to stop it from trembling. "I did not sleep last night. He knows where I live now." Cole did not hesitate. "You are not staying there again." She blinked, confused. "I have a lease. I cannot just leave it." "You can and you will tonight. I will cover any early termination fees. That is not your responsibility." His eyes held hers steady. "Your safety is not negotiable." The words cut through her defenses in a way nothing else had. Before she could respond, Lydia returned, holding the phone like evidence. "He did install surveillance software. A piggyback app, disguised as a system update. It tracks GPS microphone activation and text logs." Grace felt the room sway. Cole stood instantly, steadying her with a hand near her back. "Did he listen to my calls?" "Possibly, but we cannot confirm until we analyze the data pipeline," Lydia continued. "What we do know is that he had access to your location for at least 3 weeks. Grace pressed her fingers to her mouth, horrified. "How do I make it stop?" "We already did," Lydia replied evenly. "The phone is disabled permanently. We also traced the connection route to a device in Fremont, That is likely his secondary phone. Cole's voice sharpened. Send the coordinates to my legal team and private security. I want surveillance on that location and a harassment file opened immediately. Lydia nodded and left again. Grace stared at the door. A harassment file. In Washington state, harassment can be documented even without physical harm, Cole explained gently. My legal team will compile timestamps, witness statements, and digital evidence. It will support a future restraining order. Her hands shook. I thought the police said my situation was not enough. With this evidence it is. He lowered his voice. But do not rely on the police to act quickly. We will handle this until they do. For once, Grace did not argue. Fear had devoured every ounce of her pride. Cole studied her a long moment, then asked quietly, "Did he ever threaten suicide to keep you from leaving?" It was such a precise question, such a painfully accurate one that Grace's breath broke. Yes. He said if I left him I would destroy him and that it would be my fault. Cole nodded as if confirming something. That is emotional coercion. It almost always escalates into physical intimidation. Grace shivered. I kept telling myself he was hurting, not dangerous. Dangerous men do not come labeled as monsters, Grace. They start as hurting men. Cole walked to his desk, retrieving a folder. Inside were forms, keys, and a simple clean contract. I am offering you a temporary arrangement, not permanent, not romantic, not binding, just 90 days of safety while we get legal protection in place. Grace shook her head reflexively. I cannot take your money. I am not offering money. I am offering structure. The contract is simple. You stay in a secure temporary residence monitored by my security. You receive a dedicated phone number and private driver. In exchange, you attend 3 public events with me. Grace blinked, startled. Events? Why? Cole leaned against the edge of the desk, arms crossed. The media has hounded me for years. If they see you with me, they will assume we are dating, which means they will report it. Once your relationship to me is public, your stalker loses privacy. He will know that everyone is watching how he behaves. He will know that trying to reach you requires going through me. Fear prickled through her, but not of Cole. Of how much sense it all made. So he becomes afraid of consequences. Exactly, but I will not force you to do anything. Grace stared at the forms, her breath unsteady. A safe residence, a dedicated phone, security, a plan. No one had ever offered her a plan before. Evan only offered fear. Every instinct screamed she should not lean on a man she barely knew. But another voice whispered she had nearly been grabbed outside her apartment last week. She had jumped at every shadow since Portland, since Tacoma, since everywhere. Grace lifted her eyes. What does the contract require from me socially? Nothing romantic, Cole said quickly. You will stand beside me, smile at cameras, and leave with my driver. That is all. We are not pretending intimacy. We are projecting visibility. Grace felt her tension ease slightly. And after 90 days, you walk away if you want. He slid the keys toward her. This is the address of the secure apartment. Furnished. Stocked. You can move in tonight. She stared at the keys, metal glinting under the soft office lights. Her voice broke. Why are you doing this? Cole's expression softened, but his posture remained controlled. Because I have seen what happens when people ignore danger. Because you are being hunted. Because someone should have stepped in for you long before I did. Grace felt tears burn the edges of her vision. She looked away ashamed. I do not want to cry in your office. Then do not. There is no pressure here. But the tremor in his voice betrayed something else. He cared more than he wanted her to know. Lydia re-entered. We tracked another data point from the spyware. He accessed her location last night at 1:15 a.m. Grace's stomach lurched. That is exactly when I got home. Cole's eyes darkened with lethal clarity. Then, he is escalating faster than I expected. Grace hugged herself as if trying to keep pieces of her together. What do I do? Cole stepped closer, just near enough that she could feel the steadiness radiating from him. You sign the contract, Grace. You let me help you. And you stop surviving alone. Grace stared at the pen on the desk and realized something terrifying and freeing at the same time. Accepting help was not weakness. Running alone had been. With one slow breath, she picked up the pen and wrote her name. Cole did not smile. He did not celebrate. He only nodded once with a look that held quiet, relentless promise. You are safe now, Grace, and I will make sure he never gets near you again. Grace stared at her signature on the final page of the temporary protection contract, feeling something unfamiliar settle beneath her ribs. Not relief, exactly, not safety yet, but the first breath she had taken in months that did not scrape her throat on the way out. Cole slid the folder shut with quiet finality, and for a moment, neither of them moved, the air between them, still humming with the weight of what she had just agreed to. He did not reach for her or offer platitudes. He simply said softly, "Good. Now we start." Lydia returned with a sleek black phone still sealed in its box. "This will be your device for the next 90 days, encrypted with a hardened operating system and two-factor authentication. Only 3 numbers will have direct access to you, emergency line security dispatch, and Mr. Harrington." Grace blinked. "Only 3. Lydia nodded firmly. "A clean slate means no digital doors he can slip through." Grace accepted the phone gingerly, like it was something fragile or sacred. Cole gestured toward the hallway. "Come. Let me show you where you will be staying." She followed him through a private corridor, leading not toward the main elevators, but toward a smaller one tucked behind reinforced glass. "This lift is exclusive to the residential wing," he said. "It goes to secured floors only." The ride was smooth, silent, nothing like the rattling, panic-filled box she had been trapped in earlier that day. When the doors opened, a quiet hallway stretched ahead, carpeted in soft ocean gray tones with discreet security cameras positioned at each corner. Cole stopped in front of a door and handed her a small keycard. "This is yours. Unit 37B. No one enters without your permission, not even my staff." Grace hesitated. "Even you?" Cole's eyes softened just slightly. "Especially me. You decide who crosses your threshold." She felt that sentence seep into her deeply, like something she did not know she had been starving for. She pushed the door open slowly. The apartment was unlike anything she had ever stepped into, modern but warm, filled with natural light, even though the sun was beginning to set. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over downtown Seattle, the skyline glowing with early evening gold. A soft couch faced a stone fireplace. A small kitchen sat neat and stocked with fresh groceries. The bedroom held crisp white sheets, and a comforter that looked like a cloud she might sink into and disappear. Grace turned to Cole, realizing he had stepped back, giving her space, letting her absorb everything without him looming in the doorway. "You can stay here as long as you need," he said quietly. "The contract states 90 days, but the timeline is flexible if your legal case requires more documentation." Grace brushed her fingers over the counter. "It feels like a hotel. A very quiet one." "A very safe one," Cole corrected. She swallowed. "I do not think I have ever lived somewhere where the silence did not feel threatening." "Silence here is controlled," he replied. "No unknown footsteps, no uninvited knocks, no one waiting outside your door with flowers meant to frighten you." Her breath stuttered at the reminder, but Cole's voice steadied her again. "Tonight focus on resting. Tomorrow we will talk about the public events listed in the contract." Grace blinked, suddenly self-conscious. "The events? Yes. When do those start?" Cole studied her expression as though choosing his words carefully. "Not until you are ready, but likely within the next 2 weeks. My team will prepare you for handling cameras, crowds, and questions." "I do not want to be a burden," she murmured. His jaw twitched faintly. "Safety is not a burden, Grace. It is a responsibility, one I choose." She could not look at him without her chest tightening. "Why do you talk like that? Like my safety means something personal to you?" He paused, letting silence stretch for a breath. "Because danger is personal to me. More than you know." She could sense that was the edge of a deeper story, but he did not push it, and she did not ask again. He stepped aside. "I will leave you to settle in. Security will bring your packed belongings from your old apartment. You do not need to return there at all." Her eyes widened. "You already arranged that," Cole nodded. "After signing the contract, you should not walk into any place he knows. My team will clear the unit, document it for evidence, and terminate your lease. The manager has already been notified." Grace pressed a hand to her forehead, overwhelmed. "Everything is happening so fast." He studied her a moment, then spoke softly. "Running from him happened fast too. This is the first time you are not running alone." Something in her chest broke open at that. Before she could speak, he added, "If you need anything tonight, text the number labeled C." She raised a brow. "C, not Cole." "If you text Cole, I will know it is about something personal. But if you text C, it is strictly business, protection, updates, and logistics. 2 doors. You choose which one to open." Grace felt something warm and painful bloom beneath her ribs. That level of boundary drawing was not what she expected from a billionaire who wielded reputation like an unspoken weapon, but it was exactly what she needed. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." He gave a faint, almost reluctant smile. "Rest, Grace. Tomorrow is a new chapter. After he left, Grace wandered the apartment, touching things lightly, as if afraid they might vanish. She took a long hot shower, letting the steam loosen her shoulders for the first time in months. When she emerged, a folded note lay on the counter under a small box. She froze, then recognized the handwriting immediately, strong, even strokes that mirrored the man himself. Grace, this is not a gift, it is a tool. Wear it at the events, it will help manage attention. See, she opened the box slowly, revealing a simple silver bracelet, elegant but understated. She slipped it on, feeling its cool weight settle around her wrist like an anchor. The evening stretched quiet and calm, the kind of quiet she used to fear, but tonight it felt like she was hearing her own heartbeat again for the first time. Hours later, security delivered her belongings. As they left, one of them said softly, "You picked a good time to sign the contract. He was outside your building tonight." Grace's blood turned to ice. "Evan, outside, tonight." The guard nodded grimly. "But he did not see us. And he won't see you again." She closed the door and sank onto the couch, shaking violently until tears finally spilled, hot and exhausted. She cried for Portland. She cried for Tacoma. She cried for Seattle. She cried because someone had been chasing her for a year, and tonight someone else had finally stopped running away from her pain. When the tears slowed, her phone buzzed. A new message from C. "Just checking in. Do you feel safe?" She wiped her cheeks, staring at those 4 words. No one had ever asked her that without expecting her to lie. She typed back, "Yes," for the first time in a long time. After hitting send, she stared at her reflection in the dark window, the city lights glittering behind her. Tomorrow she would meet Cole's team. Tomorrow she would step into a world of cameras, rumors, and scrutiny. Tomorrow she would begin a 90-day arrangement with a man who looked at danger like something he had already buried, and who looked at her like someone worth protecting. But tonight she was simply Grace Miller, alone in a safe apartment, with reinforced walls and quiet air, and a silver bracelet catching light on her wrist. Not hunted, not running, not alone. Grace woke the next morning to sunlight spilling across the bedroom walls, in soft golden stripes, the kind of peaceful light she had not seen in months, because fear had always dragged her awake before dawn. For a moment she lay still, listening to the unfamiliar quiet. No footsteps in the hallway, no rustle of someone lingering outside her door, no phantom knocks, just silence, the safe kind, the kind Cole had promised. Her new phone buzzed with a single soft alert, a message from C. "Good morning. Security will pick you up at 10 for briefing and wardrobe fitting. Please eat something before then." Grace stared at the screen, fighting a small, startled laugh. He was checking if she ate. The thought felt strangely intimate, yet entirely practical coming from him. She made herself toast and fruit, then dressed in simple black slacks and a soft blue blouse, the nicest non-uniform clothes she owned. At 10 sharp, a discreet knock sounded. A female security agent with a calm posture and warm eyes introduced herself as Dana. "Good morning, Grace. We will start with a tour of Harrington Towers event prep floor. It is low traffic and secure. Cole requests your comfort be prioritized." The phrase "Cole requests" sent a warm shiver down Grace's spine. She followed Dana through a private elevator and into a suite filled with clothing racks, soft chairs, and walls lined with photographs of past philanthropic events. Cole stood near the window, speaking quietly with a tall man in a charcoal suit. His posture straightened the moment he saw Grace. He excused his colleague and approached her with a gentler expression than she expected. "How are you?" Grace nodded. "Better than yesterday." He seemed to study her closely, as if checking that her answer was not just polite. "Good," he said softly. "Today is simple. We are preparing for this weekend's tech benefit gala. You will accompany me. It is the first of the 3 events." Grace's heart thumped. Cameras, paparazzi, crowds, and Evan somewhere out there watching. Cole seemed to read her silent fear. "You will not be alone. My team will surround you the entire evening. All you need to do is walk beside me, not behind me. Beside." She absorbed those words. Beside meant seen. It meant no shadows where someone could hide. The stylist, a cheerful woman named Morgan, waved her over with an assessing gaze that was kind rather than critical. "We have options for you, Grace, selections that feel like you but elevated." Grace expected glitter gowns or something overly dramatic, but instead, Morgan helped her into a simple ivory dress that fell to her knees, elegant, soft, and understated. When she stepped out, Cole's eyes lifted and something in his expression shifted, a fraction looser, almost quiet. "You look appropriate for the event," he said, but his tone carried something warmer beneath the professionalism. Grace felt a flush rise to her cheeks. Morgan beamed. She is perfect. Next shoes and a few press rehearsal questions. Press rehearsal questions, Grace echoed. Morgan nodded. Just standard practice. Reporters often shout questions to rattle guests, especially partners of high-profile billionaires. Grace stiffened. I do not know what to say. Cole took one step closer, his voice lowering to a calm, assured register. They are not there for you, Grace. They are there for a story. Your job is simply to exist beside me without fear. She exhaled slowly. I will try. Try is enough, he said. For now. The wardrobe session lasted another hour, and by the time they finished, Grace almost recognized the woman in the mirror. Someone who did not look hunted, someone who might belong in a room full of powerful people, even if only for a single night. She returned to her apartment to rest before the evening, but a news alert flashed across her phone as she set it on the counter. Breaking: Harrington Tower event stirs curiosity, mystery woman seen with Cole Harrington. A blurry photograph from the previous night filled her screen. She and Cole standing near the private driveway, his body angled protectively between her and the world. Grace froze. Already the world knew something. She clicked the comments section reluctantly. Who is she? Gold digger vibes. Cole finally dating someone normal. She is pretty, but she looks scared. Private source says Harrington has a new partner. Rumors say he is protecting her from something. Grace's palms began to sweat. A loud ringing filled her ears. This was the part she had not prepared for, the feeling of being publicly dissected by strangers. Her phone buzzed again. See, do not read comments. They are distractions, not truths. She quickly typed. Too late. His reply came instantly. Then stop now. Those people do not know you. Grace exhaled slowly, letting the anxiety ebb, but it did not vanish completely. She changed into the gown Morgan had tailored and waited for Cole's driver to escort her. The city glowed with evening lights as the car approached the event venue, a glass museum overlooking the water. Dozens of photographers lined the entrance, their cameras flashing like silver lightning. Grace's breath hitched. Cole waited by the curb, tall, composed presence centered in the chaos. When the driver opened her door, Cole extended a hand, not demanding but offering. Grace placed her hand in his, letting the contact anchor her. The world exploded into flashes. Questions flew. Cole, over here. Who is she? Are you finally dating? Did you bring a partner to avoid rumors about last quarter's financial dip? Grace flinched, but Cole leaned down slightly, voice pitched for her alone. Eyes on me. Not them. She locked onto his steady gaze, and the noise around her blurred into distant static. They walked together, his hand resting lightly at the small of her back, a subtle protective cue for cameras, and precisely the public signal his team had intended. But before they reached the entrance, a sudden shout cut through the clamor. Grace. The voice did not belong here, did not belong anywhere near this world, did not belong inside the velvet ropes reserved for the press. She whipped her head toward the sound. Evan stood behind a barricade, gripping the metal rail, eyes wild with a sickening mix of longing and fury. Grace, you cannot hide behind him. He does not love you like I do. Grace's lungs emptied in a painful rush. One security guard stepped forward, but Evan slammed his palm against the barricade. You belong with me, Grace. Tell him. You belong with me. Grace stumbled, but Cole's hand tightened, steadying her. His voice dropped low, edged with an icy calm she had never heard from him. Do not look at him. Grace forced her eyes away, focusing on the museum doors. The world had narrowed to one burning point of terror at her back, and one unshakable presence beside her. Cameras clicked frantically, reporters shouting new questions. Who is Evan? Is this a love triangle? Is she leaving someone for Harrington? But Cole guided her forward, shielding her from the noise. Inside the glass doors muffling the chaos, Grace pressed her hand to her chest, trying to breathe. Her vision blurred. Cole signaled his security team with a subtle nod. Remove him from the perimeter and document everything. Grace felt herself sliding toward panic, but Cole stepped into her line of sight, blocking her view of the flashing lights outside. Focus on my voice, he said softly. You are safe in here. His calm steadiness felt like a lifeline. But humiliation and fear twisted inside her. He found me again. In front of everyone. Cole's jaw tightened. He wanted attention. He wanted you to look at him. You did not. That matters. She swallowed hard. Cole guided her to a quiet alcove off the lobby. Sit for a moment. She sank onto the bench, hands trembling uncontrollably. Cole crouched down, meeting her eyes level and unguarded. Listen to me. What happened out there was not your fault. He created the chaos, not you. But I made you look weak in front of the cameras, she whispered, ashamed. His brows drew together sharply. Grace, nothing about you is weak. You walked through fear with every camera pointed at you. That takes more strength than they will ever understand. Her breath stuttered. Then something inside her softened under the weight of his certainty. Security approached quietly. He is gone, sir. Cole nodded, then stood, offering his hand. Ready, Grace Miller? She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. Yes, ready. As they stepped into the gala lights, Grace realized something profound. Evan had tried to expose her, but all he had shown the world was the measure of the man beside her, and the measure of her own resilience. The gala shimmered with soft amber lights and polished marble floors that reflected clusters of Seattle's most powerful people, but the atmosphere around Grace felt strangely muffled, as if her body were still recovering from the shock. Outside, Cole's hand remained at her back, a steady, guiding warmth, but he did not push her forward or force her to engage. He simply walked beside her, letting her borrow his calm until her breathing stopped trembling. Guests approached with polite smiles and curious eyes, but Cole redirected each conversation with practiced ease, steering questions away from her without drawing attention to his efforts. He was shielding her not by hovering but by shaping the environment around her. They reached a quieter corner of the gallery, where a panoramic window stretched across the room, offering a breathtaking view of the water. Grace exhaled slowly, the tension draining from her shoulders, as she let her gaze drift to the shimmering reflection of city lights ripple across the surface. Cole studied her profile quietly. How is your pulse? This startled a soft laugh from her. I did not realize you were monitoring that. I watch for signs of distress. It helps me know when to intervene. She tilted her head, slightly troubled. You make it sound like I am something fragile. His gaze sharpened with gentle firmness. No, you are not fragile. You are overloaded. That is different. Something inside her chest warmed at the distinction. She turned to face him, fully noticing for the first time just how closely he paid attention to her without ever crossing her boundaries. Are you always like this? She asked. He raised a brow. Like what? Observant, protective, intense. Cole hesitated, as if weighing how much truth to reveal. I was not always this way, he said quietly. Life shaped me into someone who cannot ignore danger when he sees it. Grace sensed something darker beneath the surface. She had seen glimpses of it earlier when he reacted to the mention of her ex's behavior, but here, in the soft light of the gallery, the shadows behind his eyes looked deeper, more personal. She stepped closer, unconsciously drawn to understanding him the way he seemed to understand her. What happened to you? His jaw tightened for a brief second, then released as if he had decided not to fight the question. My older brother Aaron took his life 7 years ago. The words dropped between them, heavy like stones into water, leaving rings of silence expanding slowly outward. Grace's breath caught. I am so sorry. Cole nodded once the movement controlled. He was a brilliant engineer, but he had a partner who manipulated, controlled, threatened him emotionally for years. When Aaron finally tried to leave, she told him she would ruin his career, accuse him of misconduct, destroy everything he worked for. Grace pressed a hand to her heart. She used fear to trap him, yes, and when he broke, she blamed him for her cruelty. Cole's voice grew rough for the first time, edges scraping against memories he rarely touched. I did not understand the danger then. I thought emotional abuse was survivable, that words could not kill. His eyes lifted to hers, dark and honest. I was wrong. Grace felt tears prick behind her eyes, not because of the tragedy, but because of the quiet way he carried it, as if every step since had been shaped by regret he could never erase. You were young, she whispered. You could not have known. But I should have, he said softly. The world saw my success before I did. I had resources, power, influence. I could have exposed her. I could have protected him. But I hesitated, and I lost him. Grace's chest constricted with a painful tenderness. You cannot punish yourself for another person's cruelty. Cole shook his head slightly. I do not blame myself for her actions, but I blame myself for not recognizing danger sooner. He inhaled slowly. That is why I knew exactly what I saw in the lobby yesterday. That is why I stepped in. Grace's voice trembled. Because you saw me the way he was. Yes, and because my brother suffered alone, I will not watch someone else do the same. That final sentence pulled at her like an unseen force, drawing her closer. She did not realize her hand had moved until her fingertips brushed his sleeve, the contact light but undeniable. Cole did not pull away, but his breath caught, barely perceptible. You do not have to save me, she said gently. I know. His voice softened into something almost fragile beneath the steel. But I want you safe. Not because you remind me of him, because you are you. Her heart fluttered painfully at the quiet conviction in his tone. She looked down at the carpet, the soft pattern blurring slightly. It feels strange letting someone help me. I have been alone for so long. Alone does not mean unworthy, he murmured. And accepting safety is not weakness. Grace swallowed, tears rising again. The thing is, I was not afraid to move cities or start over. I was afraid no one would believe me if I said I was in danger. He always seemed so charming to others. Abusers often cultivate charm first, Cole said. It gives them credibility when their victims speak. A tremble ran through her. Sometimes, I wonder if I imagined everything. He never hit me, but he would say things that made me doubt myself, like if I left him I would ruin his life, or he would never forgive me. Cole gently reached out, resting his hand near hers on the edge of the window ledge, not touching yet close enough for warmth to pass between them. Psychological abuse leaves invisible bruises, he said. But they hurt just as much as the visible ones. She blinked, tears sliding down silently. Do you really believe that? Absolutely. His certainty steadied her once more. Grace turned toward the skyline, the lights dancing across her reflection. For the first time in months, she did not feel small or hunted or powerless. Instead, she felt seen not through Evan's obsession but through Cole's quiet, unwavering understanding. A soft chime sounded, signaling the start of the fundraising presentation. Guests gathered around the central atrium, but Cole made no move to leave. We can stay here, you do not need to be on display. She gave him a small, tired smile. I think I can try. Are you sure? She nodded, surprising herself. I feel safe with you. Something flickered in his expression, something warm and unexpectedly vulnerable, but gone too quickly for her to grasp. He offered his arm. Then let us go as equals. She linked her arm through his body heat steadied her until her pulse matched the quiet rhythm of his steps. As they walked through the gallery, guests parted subtly, acknowledging Cole's presence, but their eyes lingered on her, not with suspicion this time, but with curiosity, respect, admiration. When they reached the atrium, a woman in a sparkling navy dress approached, smiling warmly at Cole. Good evening, Cole. This must be the woman from the photographs. Grace tensed, but Cole's hand settled lightly over hers, grounding her. This is Grace Miller, he said evenly. She is my guest tonight. The woman's smile softened. You look lovely, Grace. Welcome. Grace exhaled silently, thankful the woman did not pry further. As they moved deeper into the crowd, people greeted them politely, but Cole navigated each interaction smoothly, preventing any probing questions from landing on Grace. At one point, an older man asked, "Is she the reason you finally stepped back into the public eye?" Cole paused and glanced at Grace before replying. She is the reason I remembered why certain things matter. The man seemed satisfied and walked away. Grace blinked at Cole, stunned by his honesty. Cole looked down at her with an expression that made her heart stutter. You brought clarity, he said quietly. A clarity I did not realize I had lost. Grace felt her breath hitch. Cole. He shook his head barely. You do not need to say anything. Just know it is true. The evening slowly softened into warm conversations, quiet music, and the kind of atmosphere where she no longer felt like prey but someone rediscovering her right to exist in the world. When the gala began winding down, Cole guided her toward a balcony overlooking the water. The night air was cool, fresh, and gentle. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For making me feel real again. Cole's expression went still, but in a way that felt full, not hollow. Grace, you were always real. You were just never safe. His voice lowered. Now you are both. For a moment, neither of them looked away. The world felt small and quiet and suspended between two heartbeats. She exhaled, shaky. I want to believe that. Then let me prove it, he murmured. Not with money, not with power, with presence. She felt something inside her shift, like a door opening inch by inch. Maybe for the first time she was not afraid of what waited behind it. Grace woke the next morning with a strange lightness in her chest. Leftover warmth from the gala where fear had not swallowed her whole, and where Cole had stood beside her as if she belonged in the glow of chandeliers and polished marble floors. She brewed coffee, still wearing the silver bracelet he had given her, its cool weight soothing against her wrist. For the first time in months she felt a flicker of something like hope. Then her new phone buzzed. A notification, not from C, not from security, from the news. She clicked before she could stop herself. Breaking anonymous source claims Harrington Systems misconduct, photo attached. Her breath caught. The image loading on the screen was a blurry, zoomed-in photo from the gala of Cole's hand resting protectively at her back. and beneath it a quote from an unnamed insider that made her stomach drop. Harrington's new companion is manipulating him for influence, claims source. She is bankrupt and unstable. This could expose vulnerabilities within the company. Grace stared wide-eyed, pulse hammering. This was not random gossip. Someone fed the media a story crafted to hurt Cole professionally, and the wording unstable repeated in a way that made her blood run cold. Evan. Her phone buzzed again, this time a message from C. Grace, stay in the apartment. I am on my way. She whispered no under her breath as panic tangled with guilt. She did not want him to see this. She did not want him to think she had brought chaos to his life. But he was already outside less than 15 minutes later, knocking once before entering when she confirmed it was safe. Cole stepped in, tense, jaw set, eyes darker than she had ever seen them. He held his phone up. You saw the article? Grace nodded, throat tight. I am so sorry, Cole. I should not have gone last night, or stood beside you, or let the cameras. She broke off, pressing a hand over her mouth. This is my fault. Cole crossed the room in 2 calm, unhurried steps, and stopped directly in front of her, forcing her eyes to meet his. Grace, look at me. She did, tears threatening to spill. He shook his head slowly, voice low and controlled. You will never apologize for existing beside me. Do you understand? She swallowed. But the article? Cole exhaled once, a controlled breath, the kind one releases only after shoving down something far harsher. It is targeted, strategic. Someone wanted to destabilize my company image overnight. Her mind spun. Who would do that? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, jaw tightening. My COO, I need to take this. Grace watched him step aside, the low, steady cadence of his voice carrying the tone of a man navigating a crisis without panic. Yes, I saw it. No, it will not affect tomorrow's briefing. Trace the source. I want confirmation before noon. No, not a statement yet. We hold until we know who is behind it. When he hung up, Cole turned back to her, expression unreadable. The leak came through a protected media channel, not easy to access. Grace felt a chill. You think it is someone inside Harrington's systems? Cole hesitated, then shook his head. No, the phrasing is wrong. It matches something else. Something personal. Grace froze. Unstable. Bankrupt. Manipulating. Those were Evan's favorite weapons, twisting her identity to break her reality. Evan was spreading lies about her to break Cole. Her phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. The same number Evan once used when he pretended to be someone else to monitor her. So, this is the guy you ran to. Does he know what you really are, Grace? She dropped the phone as if burned. Cole stepped forward, picking it up carefully without touching the screen. His voice tightened. That is him. Yes, she whispered, trembling. Cole studied the message, his expression silent storm. He has expanded the attack. He is not only following you, he is targeting your proximity to me. Her breathing quickened. He is going to ruin you. Cole's gaze snapped to hers with firm, impenetrable certainty. No, he is not. But he is trying to ruin you, Grace. And through you, me. Because of me, she whispered, horrified. No, because obsession spills. It spreads parasitically until it touches anything near its host. Cole paced once, processing with machine-like clarity. Evan has no access to corporate files, no access to my board, but he does have something else. A motive. And photographs. Grace sank onto the couch, overwhelmed. Cole sat beside her, not too close but close enough for warmth to reach her without crowding. His voice softened just enough to make her chest tighten. This is not your fault, Grace. He would have done this to anyone you cared about. But it is happening to me, she whispered. And you are a public figure. This could hurt you. Cole shook his head. My reputation has survived worse storms than this. What matters right now is stopping his escalation. Grace buried her face in her hands. I never wanted to destroy your life. Cole leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, voice quieter, more intimate. Grace, look at me. She lifted her head slowly, tears streaking down her cheeks. Cole held her gaze steady, unflinching. You did not destroy anything. You were hunted. I stepped in. This is what stepping in looks like. Messy, loud, public. I knew that. I chose that. His voice dropped lower. And I do not regret it. Something in her broke open, a flood of emotion she had been holding back for months. She whispered, why me? Why would you choose to step into this? His eyes softened, pain flickering through them. Because danger is familiar to me. And because you did not deserve to face it alone. Before either of them could say more, Cole's phone chimed again. He glanced at the screen, and his expression sharpened with lethal clarity. New information. Grace's pulse slammed. What? Cole stood pacing once. Lydia traced the source of the media leak. It came from a device previously connected to your stolen data. Grace felt cold wash down her arms. So the leak came from Evan. Yes, Cole said, voice tight. But that is not all. He sent an anonymous tip to a financial journalist, claiming you are exploiting my wealth. Grace shook her head frantically. That is not true. I know it is not, he said calmly. But his goal was never truth. It was humiliation and destabilization. Grace whispered, I cannot let him ruin your company. This is not sustainable. Maybe I should leave the contract. Cole spun to face her sharply. No, absolutely not. That is what he wants. Her chest tightened. But staying near you is making everything worse. No, he said firmly, stepping closer. Staying near me is the only reason you are not alone in this. His voice softened, but his eyes remained fierce. Grace, you spent a year running from him. Running has not kept you safe. And leaving now will give him exactly what he is trying to build. Fear, isolation, doubt. Grace looked away, unsure if she could hold his gaze without breaking. Cole knelt in front of her, forcing her to meet his eyes. I will not let him manipulate you into abandoning your own safety. He lowered his voice. Do you trust me? She breathed shakily. Yes. Then let me handle the corporate backlash. You focus on healing. She nodded, tears blurring her vision. Cole stood, then rechecked his phone. My legal team wants to file a digital harassment report and attach his anonymous leak. It strengthens your future restraining order. Grace nodded numbly. Okay, but Cole hesitated. There is something else. Grace's stomach dropped. What? Evan attempted to contact one of my investors last night under a false identity. Grace's breath hitched. Why would he do that? Cole's expression darkened. To undermine me, and to isolate you. If he can make you believe you are harming my company, he thinks you will distance yourself. To him, control means convincing you that you are the danger. Grace whispered. I hate that he knows how to hurt me through you. Cole stepped closer, voice quiet but burning. Let him try. I have weathered attacks from journalists, hostile competitors, and politicians, but none of them have ever made me feel what I felt watching you run into that elevator. Grace's breath caught. Cole's gaze softened. This is not about reputation anymore, Grace. This is about you. And I will not let him weaponize you against yourself. Grace pressed a shaking hand to her face, overwhelmed but safe in the fierce, unwavering certainty in his voice. Cole added, and one more thing. You should know this before the day gets harder. I instructed my security team to trace every number he has used to contact you. We found a secondary device. It is currently active half a mile from your old apartment. Grace felt nauseous. He is still there, probably watching for you. Her knees weakened, but Cole caught her elbow, steadying her. He will not find you here. He will not get near you again, she whispered. How do you know? Cole's voice dropped into something low and resolute. Because this time I am not letting him hunt alone. The words settled into her like armor, warm and strong and terrifying in their intensity. Cole held her gaze until her breathing steadied, then added gently, we will take back your life, Grace, one piece at a time. And he will not define your future. Not anymore. Grace tried to hold herself together as the day stretched forward, but a coil of dread sat low in her stomach, tightening with every passing hour. Cole's security team updated her regularly, yet the knowledge that Evan was still somewhere close to her old life gnawed at her. By late afternoon she needed air, something ordinary to ground herself. She asked Dana, the security agent, if she could go to the market across the street from Harrington Tower for groceries. Dana assessed the risk carefully, then nodded. Yes, but I will accompany you and stay within 5 feet at all times. Grace agreed, grateful for even a small taste of normalcy. The grocery store hummed with quiet life, mothers comparing prices, students scanning shelves, elderly couples drifting down aisles. For a moment she almost felt invisible in the best way. Dana followed discreetly, letting Grace choose fruit cereal tea. It felt safe, almost peaceful. Grace reached for a carton of eggs when the world suddenly shifted. A reflection in the refrigerator door. A familiar silhouette standing too still, watching her. Evan. Her lungs collapsed. Evan stood at the end of the aisle, wearing a baseball cap pulled low, but she would know that posture, that stillness anywhere. His eyes locked on her with a hunger that sent ice slicing through her spine. Before she could speak, Evan smiled, a slow, calculated smile that did not belong in a public place under fluorescent lighting. You made this too easy, Gracie. Her voice died in her throat. Dana reacted instantly, moving between them, but Evan darted back, disappearing around the corner with startling speed. Dana spoke into her comms. Suspect inside store heading north, aisle 7, lockdown exits. Stay behind me, Grace. They moved quickly but silently toward the front of the store. Customers looked up, confused as subtle security maneuvers unfolded. A second guard entered through the main doors. Grace clutched her basket to her chest, heart hammering painfully. "We have to leave," she whispered. "Now." Dana guided her toward the exit, but as they stepped outside, the cool Seattle air slapped her face, bringing a nauseating clarity with it. The sidewalk looked normal, people strolling, cars humming by, nothing out of place except for the black SUV parked half on the curb, engine quietly running. Dana stiffened. "Grace, get back." But before Grace could react, the SUV door flew open, and Evan lunged out, grabbing her wrist with a force that tore a cry from her throat. "Let go," she gasped. Evan yanked her toward the open vehicle, his grip bruising. "Get in, Gracie, we are going home, we are fixing everything you ruined." Dana slammed into him, knocking his hold loose, but Evan swung wildly, catching Dana across the chin, sending her stumbling. Grace backed away, shaking so hard her knees nearly buckled. Evan reached for her again, fingers brushing her sleeve. "Do not run," he hissed. "You owe me this." Grace screamed louder than she ever had in her life. People turned. A man shouted. A woman pulled out her phone. But Evan still lunged forward until a third figure, fast, precise, struck him from the side. Cole. He moved with no wasted energy, grabbing Evan's arm, twisting it behind his back, forcing him onto the pavement. "Do not touch her, Cole," growled voice low, sharper than steel. Evan kicked wildly, shrieking, "Get off me, she is mine, she is mine, she belongs to me." Cole tightened his hold until Evan stilled under the weight of sheer, overpowering strength, controlled but undeniable. Dana regained her stance, swiftly pinning Evan's legs, while another Harrington security agent sprinted from across the street, adding reinforcement. "Call police now," Cole ordered. His voice was deadly calm, the kind that hid the most dangerous kind of fury. Grace stood frozen, trembling violently, tears streaming without her realizing it. Evan thrashed again, eyes wide with manic desperation. "She ruined me, she left me, she owes me." Cole leaned down enough for Evan to hear every syllable. "She owes you nothing. You hunted her, you terrorized her, and you will answer for every moment of it." "Sir, police ETA 2 minutes," Dana reported. Cole nodded, not releasing Evan's arm. Grace gasped for breath, chest constricting as if the air itself rejected her. She could hear her heartbeat thundering, then fading, then thundering again, a painful stuttering rhythm. Cole looked up, instantly sensing the shift. "Grace." She backed away, stumbling. "I cannot breathe." Cole released Evan to security, who held him pinned against the pavement, screaming incoherently. Cole rose and moved toward Grace with slow, deliberate steps, hands visible, not reaching but open. "Grace, look at me," he said, voice softer than the chaos around them. "You are safe." Evan's voice sliced through the air behind them. "Gracie." Cole snapped his gaze toward Evan, eyes going cold. "Muzzle him until police arrive." A guard clamped a hand firmly over Evan's mouth. Silence fell, except for Grace's ragged gasps. Cole approached her, stopping only when she lifted her shaking gaze to meet his. "You are safe," he repeated quietly. "Breathe with me, Grace." She matched his inhale, exhale, trembling through every second until her lungs finally loosened enough to take in a full breath. Tears blurred the world around her. He almost took me." Cole's expression tightened, the slightest fracture in his control. "But he did not, and he never will again." Police arrived, lights flashing blue against the storefront. Officers ran forward, restraining Evan, fully cuffing him while he struggled and spat accusations at Grace. "Filthy lies. She ruined my life. She is nothing without me." Cole stepped subtly between Grace and Evan, blocking her view, shielding her from the last degrading fragments of Evan's rage. Officers questioned witnesses, gathered statements, reviewed store footage, and collected testimony from security. After 10 long minutes, Evan was shoved into the back of the police cruiser, still ranting to no one. When the car pulled away, Grace sagged forward, the last thread of adrenaline snapping inside her. Cole caught her elbow, steadying her with both hands. She leaned into him, unable to hold her weight. He lowered his voice close enough for only her to hear. "It is over for now. He will not come near you again." Grace sobbed against the back of her hand, shaking uncontrollably. Cole guided her gently toward the waiting car, holding doors open, shielding her from onlookers. Once inside, she collapsed into the seat, her body trembling from the shock. Cole sat beside her, not touching but close enough that his presence steadied the air. Grace pressed her palms to her face. "This is my nightmare, and now it is yours too." Cole's voice softened impossibly. Grace, look at me. She lowered her hands slowly. Cole's eyes were not angry, not frustrated, not tired, only steady, only present. This is not my nightmare. It is my responsibility because you trusted me enough to let me help. Tears dripped off her chin. I did not want you pulled into this violence. Cole exhaled slowly, something fragile flickering beneath his usual composure. Violence finds people who do not deserve it. What matters is who stands with them afterward. Grace's lips trembled. I thought I was going to die. His jaw tightened. I know, but you fought, and you survived, and you are not alone anymore. She leaned back, eyes closing, exhausted beyond words but comforted by the solid, quiet presence of the man beside her. As the car pulled away from the scene, Cole finally allowed himself to look at her with the full weight of what he felt. Relief, fury, fear for her, and something deeper, something he had spent years locking away. Under his breath, barely audible, he murmured, "You are safe now, Grace. I am here." The night after the kidnapping attempt felt endless, a heavy silence filling the secure apartment, as if even the walls were holding their breath. Grace sat, curled on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, while her mind replayed the moment Evan's hand clamped on her wrist. The terror, the chaos, Cole slamming Evan to the ground, the scream that tore out of her that did not even sound like her own. She had survived, but her body still felt caught in the moment, between being pulled away and being saved. Cole had stayed until her breathing steadied, only leaving when she finally insisted she needed sleep. But even then he had paused at the door as if unwilling to let anything come between them. "You are safe. Every time I say it, I mean it," he had whispered. Now, morning light spilled into the apartment, washing the room in pale calm, but Grace felt none of it. Her entire body felt hollow, as though fear had carved out pieces of her. A soft knock sounded at the door. Grace froze, holding her breath until Dana's voice came clearly. "It is just me, Grace." Security check. Grace opened the door, relieved but still trembling. Dana frowned slightly. "Did you sleep?" Grace shook her head. Dana stepped inside, checking windows, locks, sensors, noting everything in her tablet. "Evan is in custody. They booked him on attempted kidnapping, harassment, and resisting arrest. A court hearing is scheduled for tomorrow." Grace exhaled a shaky breath. "So he is really gone?" "For now, yes," Dana said gently. But she hesitated, then added, "There is something else. The media spun the incident already. Paparazzi got a blurry video. Cole's involvement is headlining everywhere." Grace's stomach twisted. "Oh no." Dana gave a sympathetic look. "He is handling it. But it is intense out there." When Dana left, Grace pulled up the news. Her heart dropped. Billionaire Cole Harrington subdues violent attack outside grocery store, footage leaked. Speculation swirls over mystery woman at center of incident. Analysts question Harrington's stability ahead of major negotiations. Grace covered her mouth, her pulse racing painfully. She clicked another link. Investors unsettled as personal scandal entangles Harrington. Grace felt her throat tighten. Because of her. Because she existed near him. Because she let fear push her into his world. She whispered to the empty room, "They are tearing him apart because of me." As if summoned by her despair, her phone buzzed. A message from Cole. "I am coming by at noon. We have things to discuss." Grace stared at the words, chest constricting. He did not sound upset. But she knew this was costing him. His company was preparing for a major contract proposal. His investors were already wary of his retreat from the public eye. Now there were videos of him tackling a man outside a grocery store, while a mysterious woman screamed, "Her." She dressed slowly, hands trembling, and tried to rehearse what she needed to say. She needed to free him. She needed to release him from the responsibility she had foolishly accepted. At 11:59, a gentle knock sounded. Grace opened the door. Cole stood there, not in a suit but in a simple black sweater, his expression calm but shadowed by exhaustion. His presence filled the doorway, the corridor, the air around her. "Grace," he said softly, "may I come in?" She stepped aside. He entered quietly, glancing around as if checking she was really safe. "How are you feeling this morning?" Grace wrapped her arms around herself, unable to lie. "Fragile." He nodded once. "The shock will take time to settle. But you did everything right yesterday." She shook her head vigorously. "I was careless. I should not have gone to the store. I put you and Dana and your company in danger." Cole frowned deeply. "Grace, nothing about that was your fault." But she stepped back as though distance would make the next words easier. "Cole, I cannot stay." Cole froze. The silence swelled between them. "What did you say?" Grace swallowed hard, forcing it out. "I cannot stay in this arrangement." I am pulling out of the contract. Cole's expression did not break, but something behind his eyes tightened, like a door slamming shut. No, he said quietly. Grace, you are in immediate danger. This is the worst moment to leave. That is why I have to, she whispered. Because everything happening to your company is because of me. Cole blinked slowly, stunned. Grace, no. Investors are blaming your instability. Media outlets are calling your leadership compromised. The footage of what happened is everywhere. Because I was there. Because I am tied to you. Grace lowered her gaze, unable to hold the weight of his silence. I will not be the reason your company bleeds. Cole stepped closer, voice firm. My company has weathered storms far worse than gossip. Investors panic at everything. They will recover, but your safety cannot recover from leaving now. Grace shook her head fiercely. But I saw the way people looked at you online. They are attacking you because of me. They say you are compromised. They say you are distracted. They say I am a liability. Cole's jaw flexed, but his voice stayed measured. Are you repeating what they said or what you fear? She flinched. Cole softened just slightly. Grace, everyone has opinions. They are not truth. But she backed away until her shoulders hit the wall. This is hurting you. You have worked your whole life to build a company. You lost your brother already. I cannot be the next thing you lose because of someone else's cruelty. Cole inhaled sharply, as if the mention of his brother struck somewhere deep. Grace, please do not tie that to this. But it is tied, she whispered. Everything that touches me becomes dangerous. I cannot be in your world, Cole. People will keep attacking you. They will destroy you because I exist near you. Cole's voice dropped low, controlled yet trembling, with something raw. Grace, listen to me. You staying is not what puts me in danger. You leaving is. Grace blinked, confused. What? Because leaving now is exactly what he wants. He is trying to isolate you, make you feel toxic, make you feel like a burden. That is the psychology of control. If you walk away, you are proving him right. Grace's voice trembled. This is not about Evan. This is about you. And I will not let you be harmed because of me. Cole stepped forward until she had to lift her chin to look at him. His voice softened like velvet over steel. You are not harming me. You are healing me. You are reminding me why standing up matters. She felt tears gathering but forced herself to stay strong. I cannot accept that. Then accept this, he murmured. I would rather face scandal than watch you walk back into danger alone. Her heart twisted painfully. Cole, you deserve freedom from this chaos. You deserve someone who does not bring destruction. His brows knitted in disbelief. You think you bring destruction. Look at what happened yesterday, she whispered. Look what you had to do. Look how the world reacted. Cole's voice dropped into a whisper, rough and sincere. Grace, I did not tackle him because of a contract. I tackled him because you were crying. Because you were terrified. Because I could not bear the thought of anything happening to you. She pressed a hand to her heart, trembling. That is why I have to go. Because if anything happened to you because of me, I would never survive it. Their eyes locked, the air between them charged with everything they were both afraid to name. Cole closed his eyes briefly, as if steadying something inside. Then he stepped back, allowing space between them, though his voice held a tremor she had never heard from him. If walking away makes you feel free, I will not stop you. The words sliced through her. He was not releasing her because he wanted to. He was releasing her because he refused to become another cage. Cole continued quietly. You choose your path. But know this. You are not a burden. Not to me. Not to anyone who sees you clearly. Grace pressed her trembling fingers to her lips, her entire body aching with conflict. I am sorry, Cole, she whispered. So softly he might not have heard. But he did. His eyes darkened with loss, but he nodded once, a gesture of respect, not agreement. Then take the secure car to wherever you are going. Do not walk. Do not take a bus. Do not return to your old apartment. She nodded. Cole stepped aside, letting her pass. Her hand lingered on the door for one suspended moment, wishing he would stop her, wishing he would pull her back, wishing she could believe she deserved his protection. But he only said one final thing, his voice low, steady, heartbreaking. If you ever feel unsafe again, you call me. There is no contract for that. There never will be. Grace's breath faltered. Then she walked out the door, leaving behind the safest place she had ever known and the man who had become safety itself. As the elevator carried her away, she pressed her fist to her mouth, trying not to sob. She thought she was saving him, protecting him, freeing him. But the moment the doors closed, she realized the truth. She had just broken her own heart. Grace spent 3 days in the small rented room she had found through a last-minute listing, barely more than a converted attic with thin walls and a window that rattled whenever buses passed. She slept little, ate less, and worked long shifts at a 24-hour diner, 2 neighborhoods from the Royal Meridian, hoping the noise and routine would drown out the silence Cole left behind. But silence follows a person more faithfully than sound. Each night, she lay awake, replaying the moment she walked away. The look in Cole's eyes, the quiet ache in his voice, the way his presence had felt like a hand steadying her from the inside. Now, without him, her world felt unstable again, like an elevator suspended between floors. On the 4th morning, Grace checked the news automatically. Evan had been denied bail. The restraining order finally approved. The public frenzy around the kidnapping attempt was dying down, replaced by news stories, and Cole Harrington, she typed into the search bar before she could stop herself. Her breath stilled as articles filled the screen. Harrington, missing key meetings, analysts speculate on health. Cole Harrington seen leaving tower alone, looking distressed. Harrington Systems announces, temporary adjustment in leadership schedule. Grace's stomach dropped. It was her fault. He had taken steps backward in his life because she had taken herself out of his. She closed the laptop, pressing her palms against her eyes. She had told herself leaving was protecting him, but the truth had been tightening inside her since the moment the elevator doors closed. She had not been protecting him. She had been running. Again. Running in the way she had run from Evan, Portland, Tacoma, every city she left, because she believed her presence did more harm than good. But Cole had shown her something different, not just safety, but the possibility of being worth protecting. A possibility she had walked away from. Grace threw on a jacket, grabbed her bag, and rushed toward the bus stop, heart pounding. Harrington Tower loomed tall and silver in the Seattle skyline, like a pillar of glass and steel holding the sky in place. As she approached, security recognized her immediately. "Miss Miller," one guard said, stepping forward. "Are you here for Mr. Harrington?" "If he wants to see me," she said nervously. The guard exchanged a glance with the second one, then spoke gently. "He has not been in meetings. Staff is concerned." Grace's chest tightened. "Can I go up?" "Of course." They escorted her to the private elevator turret that led to the executive floors. As the elevator ascended, Grace's pulse thudded in her ears. She remembered Cole's quiet strength, the subtle warmth beneath his reserved exterior, the steady way he looked at her, as though seeing not what she feared she was, but what she might become. And she had left him hurting. The doors slid open to the 45th floor, silent, carpeted, and dimly lit. Cole's assistant Lydia stood behind her desk, typing slowly, pale worry on her face. Lydia's eyes widened at the sight of Grace. "Miss Miller, you came. Is he here?" Lydia let out a slow exhale. "He is in his office, but he has not spoken much. He sends emails to let us know he is alive, but that is all." Grace felt her breath shake. "May I see him?" Lydia nodded and motioned toward the frosted glass doors. "He is not meeting anyone right now, but if anyone can get through, it will be you." Grace pushed the doors open quietly. The office was dim, lit only by the gray Seattle daylight, filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows. Cole stood with his back to her, hands in his pockets, shoulders tense, the lines of his suit rumpled as if he had slept in it. She stepped inside softly, closing the door. Cole did not turn. "I told Lydia, no meetings today," he said, voice low, steady, but exhausted. Then he went still, like an animal recognizing a scent. "Grace." Her name escaped him in a whisper that cracked at the edges. Slowly he turned. His eyes found hers, and something inside him broke open. He looked undone, and trying not to show it, holding himself together by a thread. Grace swallowed the lump in her throat. "Hi." He blinked once, as if making sure she was real. "You are here." "I am," she whispered. There was no distance left to pretend. "I needed to see you." He exhaled shakily, a sound between relief and disbelief. "Why?" Grace stepped closer. "Because leaving was a mistake." Cole flinched as if the words struck him. Grace continued, voice trembling but determined. "I thought I was protecting you, but the truth is I left because I was scared. Because every time something terrible happened in my life, the answer was always to run. I ran from cities, from Evan, from danger, and then I ran from you." Tears welled, but she forced herself to hold his gaze. "But walking away from you did not make me safe. It made me feel more lost than I ever have in my life." Cole's throat worked as he tried to steady his breathing. "Grace." She rose on trembling feet, taking another step toward him. "When I saw those headlines about you missing meetings, about your staff being worried, something broke inside me. I thought losing me would give you peace. Instead, it hurt you." Cole finally moved, closing the distance until only a heartbeat separated them, his voice hoarse, restrained. You leaving did not hurt my business, Grace. It hurt me. Her breath caught. Cole inhaled slowly, as though choosing every word with careful weight. I tried to tell myself you needed space, that letting you go was the right thing. He looked down briefly, then back up, eyes filled with raw truth. But every morning I woke up wondering if you were safe. Every night I thought about calling you, and did not, because I did not want to pull you back into something you feared. His voice dropped to a whisper. I missed you so much it frightened me. Grace pressed a hand to her mouth, tears slipping free. Cole continued softly. Because somewhere along the way, protecting you stopped being about what happened to my brother. It stopped being about responsibility. It stopped being about a contract. His eyes burned into hers. Grace, I care about you. Not because you need safety, but because you are the bravest person I have ever met. Because you do not see yourself the way I do. Because being near you feels like breathing after years of holding my breath. Her heart clenched painfully, beautifully. And then, the words she had been holding spilled out. I love you. Cole froze, stunned, the air between them trembling. Grace repeated, more steady this time. I love you, Cole. I do not want protection, or contracts, or arrangements. I want you. All of you. The man who fought for me, the man who believes in me, the man who broke the patterns I thought would rule the rest of my life. Cole stepped forward slowly, as though approaching something precious, fragile, sacred. Then he cupped her face gently, reverently, his thumbs brushing away her tears. Grace, he whispered, voice breaking. I have loved you since the moment you ran into that elevator and looked at me like I was not the billionaire everyone feared, but simply a man who could help you breathe again. She let out a trembling exhale, leaning into his touch. Cole lowered his forehead to hers, and the gentleness of it shattered every last barrier. Stay, he whispered. Not because of safety or fear or obligation. Stay because you choose to. Grace nodded, a single breathless word escaping her lips. Yes. Then Cole kissed her. Not rushed, not hungry, but deep, slow, certain, a confession made with lips and breath, and trembling restraint. She clutched his shoulders, feeling the strength in him, the quiet softness he never let anyone else see. When they finally parted, he rested his forehead against hers, still holding her face as if anchoring both of them. Grace. He whispered it like a vow. Whatever happens next, we face it together. She smiled through tears. No more running. Cole's voice softened into something hopeful. No more running. Grace wrapped her arms around him, and this time when he held her, it was not protection. It was home. The smell of freshly baked brioche filled the early morning air as sunlight spilled across the warm wood counters of Miller's Haven, the brunch cafe Grace had dreamed of since she was 16. The bell above the door chimed for the 8th time in 10 minutes, and Grace glanced up from the espresso machine, her face glowing with the kind of quiet confidence she once thought belonged only to other people. People who had stability, safety, and room in their lives for joy. Now that was her. 1 year had passed since she walked back into Harrington Tower and told Cole she loved him. 1 year since she had chosen to stop running. And everything in her life had changed, but more importantly, she had changed. Her cafe, nestled in a corner of Capitol Hill, was already building a loyal following. Rows of pastries lined the glass case, golden croissants, lavender muffins, her grandmother's lemon ricotta loaf, each one crafted by her own hands with a precision her Nona would have been proud of. A young couple stepped up to the counter, smiling. 2 cappuccinos and one of those raspberry tarts, please, the woman said, pointing eagerly. Grace boxed the tart, her fingers brushing the handwritten recipe taped to the inside of her mind. Thank you for coming in again, she said softly, feeling warmth bloom in her chest every time a customer returned. After the couple left, Grace wiped down the counter, humming under her breath. In the corner, Maria, her former co-worker from Cole's household staff, now her kitchen manager, flipped pancakes with the efficiency of someone who knew kitchens like second nature. Order up, Maria called, sliding a plate toward the pickup stand. Grace grabbed it, delivering it to a pair of college students, who immediately began debating whether the cafe had the best brunch in Seattle, or just the best they had ever tasted. Both answers made her grin. Mid-morning sunlight warmed the wide windows, casting soft rays across the rows of tables, and inside that comfortable glow, the door opened again, letting in a burst of spring air and a familiar presence before she even turned around. Cole. She felt him before she saw him, sensed him in the quiet shift of the room, the subtle hush that always arrived with him. Though he had tried to disguise his aura in a simple button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly ruffled from the wind, He crossed the room with that steady, purposeful stride she had once found intimidating, but now felt like the most reassuring rhythm in her day. "You are here early," Grace said, fighting a smile as she poured him his favorite black coffee dark roast with a hint of cocoa notes. He leaned against the counter the way he always did, hands braced lightly on the wood, eyes warm in a way he reserved only for her. "I cannot stay away," he said simply. "The cafe is addictive." Grace rolled her eyes playfully. "Sure, it is the cafe and not the owner." Cole's mouth curved into the soft, quiet smile she loved, a smile so different from the one he wore in boardrooms. "With you here, this place could be a shack, and it would still be the best part of my day." She felt her heart twist sweetly. He said things like that, effortlessly, not dramatic, just honest in the way that mattered. Grace set his coffee down, and Cole reached out, brushing a thumb across a smudge of flour on her cheek. "You have been working since 5, he murmured. "Did you sleep?" "Enough," she said. "The morning rush felt lighter today, and besides, seeing you is better than sleep." His laugh was low, warm and private. He took a sip of coffee, watching her with eyes that made her heart flutter in ways that no longer terrified her. "You have a meeting at noon," she reminded him. "I have 10 minutes, he countered. 10 minutes to see you." The bell chimed again. A small crowd pushed in. Grace gave Cole an apologetic glance. "Duty calls." Cole stepped aside, letting her return to her station, but he stayed where he was, watching her work with a mixture of pride and tenderness that never failed to steal her breath. Grace called orders, joked with customers, answered questions about recipes, and all the while, Cole watched the woman he had risked so much to protect, the woman who had rebuilt herself with courage where fear once lived. After 20 more minutes of steady movement, the temporary rush slowed. Cole grabbed a macaron from the display case with annoying stealth. Grace turned around just in time to see him bite into it. "Those are for customers," she scolded lightly. "I am a customer," he replied, taking another small bite. "A very important customer." She placed a hand on her hip, pretending to glare. "And what exactly makes you so important?" He set the half-eaten macaron down, stepped closer and lowered his voice so only she could hear. "I am the man who gets to love you. That is pretty important." Grace flushed, warmth rushing through her. Even after a year, those words still softened every part of her. Their moment was interrupted by Maria's voice chiming from the kitchen. "Grace, your 3 o'clock appointment is here." Grace tensed. The food critic, the one whose review could change the trajectory of her cafe. She smoothed her apron, inhaled slowly and exhaled. Cole sensed the shift instantly. "You will be perfect," he said. She forced a breathy laugh. "You always say that." "Because it is always true." The critic entered, a tall, distinguished man with a notebook tucked under his arm. He surveyed the cafe with the careful eye of someone trained to measure experiences by tiny details. Grace stepped forward, welcoming him. Cole touched her wrist gently, murmured, "Good luck," and slipped out quietly, not wanting to distract or influence the moment. Grace guided the critic through her menu, explaining inspirations, ingredients, and the small stories behind each dish. She felt confident, grounded, supported not by protection but by her own strength, forged through everything she had survived. An hour later, the critic left satisfied and thoughtful. Grace collapsed into a chair, exhaling in relief. The bell chimed and she looked up, expecting a customer, but the cafe was empty. Instead, Cole stepped inside, holding something small in his hand, a velvet box. Grace's breath caught. He crossed the room slowly, almost reverently, and stopped in front of her. His voice was quiet, steady, certain. "Do you remember the first moment we met, Grace?" She laughed breathlessly. "I ran into an elevator trying to survive a nightmare and crashed into you." Cole nodded, eyes softening with memory. "You ran from someone who hurt you. But you ran into me. And I found something I did not know I was looking for." He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring, a single oval diamond set in a platinum band glowing in the soft morning light. Grace pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Cole dropped to one knee, not in ceremony but in sincerity. "You changed my life, Grace Miller. Not because you needed protection but because you taught me how to hope again." He looked up at her eyes, full of the deepest, quiet love she had ever known. "Will you marry me, Grace? Will you keep choosing me as I will keep choosing you every day?" Tears blurred her vision as she nodded, unable to speak at first. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Cole." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and she pulled him into a breathless, trembling embrace. When they kissed, it tasted like every moment they had survived together, every step forward, every healed wound, every brave choice. Later that evening, after closing the cafe, Cole led Grace back to the Royal Meridian, the hotel where everything had begun. He guided her toward the staff elevator, the same steel-framed doorway where she had once fled for her life. Grace looked at him, smiling through tears. "You remember everything." Cole pressed the elevator button and the doors slid open quietly. "Of course," he whispered. "This is where you stopped running. This is where I found you." She stepped inside. He followed. The doors closed gently around them. No fear this time, only the warm, steady certainty of a future built, not from escape but from choosing each other. Grace took his hand, lifting her face toward him. "Ready," she whispered. Cole smiled, the rare soft smile that belonged only to her. "Ready," he replied. And together they rose into the life they had built side by side, no longer surviving but truly living. If you made it to the end of Grace and Cole's journey, then you already know this was never just a story about danger or obsession or even fate. It was a story about what happens when someone who has spent their whole life running finally chooses to stop, and someone who has spent his whole life controlling everything finally chooses to open his heart. And now, I want to hear from you, because your voice, your perspective, your experience is what turns a story into a conversation. So tell me this: if you were in Grace's shoes, in that elevator, terrified, exhausted, and suddenly face to face with someone like Cole, would you trust him enough to let him help, or would you walk away afraid that accepting protection might cost you your independence? Think about the moment she stepped into the elevator shaking from fear and found not a monster, not another threat, but a man who saw the truth behind her panic. Would you see him the same way? Would you see the danger or the possibility? And for those of you who know what it feels like to run from something or someone who hurt you, do you think you could ever stop running long enough to allow someone safe into your life? What moment would convince you it is finally time to stay? I want you to comment below and tell me where you are watching from, and share your answer. Would you choose Cole's help, or would you try to face everything alone? There is no wrong answer, only your truth. And if you believe in stories where love does not arrive as perfection but as protection, as a partnership that builds two people instead of breaking them, let me know that too. Which moment hit you the hardest? Was it Grace choosing to walk back into Harrington Tower and confess her love, or Cole whispering that he had been holding his breath for years until she came into his life? Maybe it was the moment she stopped running for good, stepping into that elevator at the end with hope instead of fear. I want to know which scene stayed with you, because your reactions help us shape the next stories we create together. And if you want more billionaire romances that blend real-world danger with emotional healing stories, where the love interest is not just wealthy but wounded, not just powerful but protective, not just romantic but truly transformative, make sure you tell me that too. Drop a comment, say hi, tell me your city or your country, and let me know what kind of story you want next. Your engagement is what keeps these stories alive, and your ideas might just become the heart of our next viral episode. So, do not be shy, tell me where you are from, and answer the question that defines this entire story. Would you have stepped into that elevator and trusted someone like Cole, or would you have kept running? I cannot wait to read your answers.